And these are the questions that should be asked. Because if these questions are asked when you seek who has control, who owns and decides, that's when you can get to the bottom of who is controlling this whole narrative. Hi, and thanks for joining me. If you can hear heavy earth-moving equipment, believe me, I can hear it even more than you can. So we're going to have to block it out because I wanted to make this video. This video, Prince Harry's mission, life, family, and Invictus Games. A 20-minute nothing burger that popped up on Hulu. Now don't worry, I'm not going to bore you silly regurgitating all of that, but I'm going to discuss with you the possible story behind that, because I think that is the more interesting story. And I am astounded that the people that are paid to cover all this stuff don't ask probing questions. They don't seem to have any intellectual curiosity, and it frustrates me. So hopefully this video we can delve in a bit and I might be able to ease some of your frustration too. So what am I talking about? Okay, let's put it into context. A few years ago, Prince Harry dashed across to see his grandmother, our late Queen Elizabeth II, and after that visit, he did an interview for the Invictus Games, whereupon he implied that he was he said he was checking to see if she had the right people around her, but the implication was she didn't. It was a clear implication that she didn't have the right people around her, that she was receiving misinformation, and somehow that misinformation was interfering with her relationship with her grandson. And, it was just so blatant, and it made a lot of headlines at the time. Well, this is what this Hulu nothing burger prompted for me. Does Prince Harry have the right people around him? Did he have full editorial control of this one? Or was it just a repackaged, extended version of the interview he did with ABC Good Morning Show, which actually it was, with archival footage placed in? But what everyone isn't emphasising is I'm hearing people saying, oh, it's just all stuff we've seen before. No, it's not, because it is plugging a certain message. It is using archival footage to send a message, to paint a narrative. And the narrative is Prince William is the ultimate villain. So, did Harry have a hand, like I said, editorial control? Did he sign off on the use of the archival footage? Did he sign off on the final package? Did he sign off on the narrative of this? If so, well, he deserves everything he gets, and he has totally destroyed any chance of any form of personal relationship with the royal family, his father. It's all dead in the water, because this was highly damaging, because yet again it was more propaganda designed to undermine Prince William, to take a very cowardly dig at him, and to paint him in a very, very damaging way. When you edit something, you are telling a story, and how you edit something influences the story that you're telling. Now, this could have painted an entirely positive picture of the Invictus Games. It could have painted the Sussexes moving on and focusing on the things that matter. It could have laid the foundation for a healing of only personal relationships with the royal family and King Charles, and nothing to do with working again or anything like that. It could have avoided all that. It could have concentrated on laying the foundation for some personal dialogue at some future point. Or it can be edited to be entirely negative. It can drag up old wounds. It can paint specific people as villains. And in this case, in a very short 20 minutes, it managed to paint Prince William as a dastardly villain once more. So there is more to this. And the key to the story behind the story is, was Prince Harry in any form of control over this material? Who handles the licensing and the permissions for his archival material? Obviously, Archwell Productions, and by extension, maybe Netflix, although in this case, clearly not. So, okay, we'll assume Archwell Productions. So who's the main brains on the ground with Archewell Productions, and who gets the sign-off? And who do they get the sign-off from? Meghan or Harry? Or I should say, okay, to be unbiased and fair, both of them. But that is the real story, because this 20 minutes was a deliberate piece of PR, a deliberate piece of propaganda. And like I said, highly damaging to Prince William. Now, everybody's going to say, oh, they can't damage Prince William. No one even listens to them anyway. It's fine. Well, don't underestimate the power of a live streaming platform like Hulu to colour, paint and influence somebody's perception of somebody else. I think it is damaging. And the thing is with these things, they go on forever. Sound bites from them, clips from them can be dragged up for years and years and years and years to justify a negative narrative against anybody. And in this case, like I said, Prince William. So I think questions need to be asked. If Harry didn't have control of this, then he needs to come out and distance himself from it. He should say, look, I gave the interview to the ABC morning show in good faith. I didn't expect them to repackage it. I didn't expect them to drag up old wounds. I didn't expect them to use archival footage from our Archewell production docu-series. I just was caught, I was wrong-footed by the whole thing, okay? He could say that in the next 24 hours and people would believe him. But he won't say that, because in saying that, he would have to admit that there was someone at Archewell Productions that didn't have his best interests at heart, the royal family's best interests at heart, and actually had a real campaign, a negative, hurtful, deliberate propaganda campaign against the future monarch, Prince William. I suspect that when the Sandringham Summit was held and Harry said in his book Spare that his father told him a whole lot of things that weren't true at the very beginning of the summit, I suspect that a lot of what he was trying to tell you, Harry, was true. And if I was you, I'd go back and mull over what he said before the summit commenced, because I think it was the last desperate attempt to break through and tell you what's really going down. So I did make some notes on the Nothing Burger 20-minute Hulu interview, and it's interesting, and I'll discuss a few things that I noticed. So right at the beginning of the doco, it said that the cameras are mainly focused on the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, but they're not the stars of the show. Well, actually, we didn't see anything else. We didn't see anything else until the very, very end, where they deigned to actually interview some of the veterans at the very, very end of the documentary. So they were the stars of the show, and no effort was made to convince us otherwise. So again, it's like when we're told to believe something that our eyes aren't seeing. So we are seeing what we're seeing on camera, and we're being told, don't trust your own eyes, don't trust your own instincts. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, although it seems like it was all about them, it wasn't. The real stars of the show were the veterans. Well, actually, no, that's not what I saw. So Will Reeve asked Harry these moments of connection, because they showed footage of him connecting with the veterans, which was just actually saying, hi, how are you? I'm Harry. This is my wife, Meghan. Oh, groan, as if they didn't know. Anyway, what is it doing for them? And then very quickly, because Harry just looked blank, what is it doing for you? Oh, instant comfort zone. Oh, you're asking me about my favourite subject, me? Oh, well, I could talk for hours. So we hear that it's Harry's annual fix to meet the veterans and probably get some affection and some media attention. And yes, I'm sure it is his annual fix. Victoria Murphy, royal contributor, said the hardest thing for Harry was having to give up his military patronages. I can never say that word. Military patronages. Thank you. Apologies in advance. And connections. Now, we get a flashback to the previous decade of the Invictus Games, and we see the famous Boom video with his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, and the Obamas in 2016. Again, who signs off on this archival footage? Does Invictus actually own that promo footage? It's highly possible they do. Did ABC Morning Show actually repackage this interview with permission from Invictus Games and the Invictus management who may have control over promo archival footage related to Invictus Games? Possible. But where it all comes undone is the flashbacks to the Meghan and Harry docu-series, which is under the control, I presume, of Archwell Productions. Or is it under the auspices of Netflix? But then why would they give permission to use, unless they're trying to make money out of licensing archival footage to other entities because they're just trying to scrape back some of the advance they gave Harry and Meghan? That could be, because they're on their way out. They're ready to cut ties in 2025 and they're trying to make as much money as they can while they have control or licensing. Maybe they have licensing over Archwell Productions footage related to the Netflix contract until 2025. That could be a possibility too. And these are the questions that should be asked. Because if these questions are asked when you seek who has control, who owns and decides, that's when you can get to the bottom of who is controlling this whole narrative. See what I mean? There's a bigger story. Okay, on to Robert Jobson. It's extraordinary. Asking him questions where he's saying that it was definitely a Harry passion project and it's where he shone, and all credit to him because he managed to keep the funding up. But then this dig at William, implying that William was jealous and surprised that Harry managed to keep Invictus Games going post-royal departure. He implies that Prince William was sort of hoping that it would fail. And I can't imagine for a second that Prince William would hope that something that was clearly benefiting veterans, well, back when Harry and Meghan first left, it was still benefiting veterans. How much it's benefiting veterans now, I don't know. I really don't know. Let me know what you think down below, because I suspect maybe the value has become more limited. So there's this extraordinary digs at Prince William. I have no idea what Robert Jobson's agenda was there. Was he trying to be unbiased? Was he trying to present the other side? Was he angling to write a book about Prince Harry? Was he angling to write a book about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex? There's something going on. I don't know, because I just think it was extraordinary. And it was incredibly disappointing because I like Robert Jobson. But when I saw this performance, I thought, ooh, what are you up to? What's the agenda here? Who's got to you? Why did you say that? It was all unnecessary. The interview could have focused on Harry's good work, the fact that he was still raising money for Invictus successfully, although it's questionable whether there's going to be enough for Whistler, Canada next year. There's been no announcements. I hope there is, because I hope a lot of veterans don't get disappointed. But it seems precarious and it seems all up in the air. And again, this documentary on Hulu could have put those concerns to rest. Then Robert Jobson goes on to basically have a dig at King Charles. He says, some may say, really, Robert, that King Charles could have made more of an effort to reach out to his grandchildren and have more contact and have a relationship. How could he do that? How could he risk reaching out to his grandchildren in Melodramacito without the fear that his communication with them wouldn't end up in another docuseries? that his communication with them wouldn't end up in a memoir, either Meghan or Harry's, that his communication with his grandchildren wouldn't be used as a way to knock him over the head, to weaponize it yet again, to illustrate that not only was he an uncaring and unfeeling and distant father, but he's not much better grandfather either. He can't afford, because the trust is gone. He never knows how any phone call, any communication, any FaceTime video, any correspondence, he doesn't know where it's going to end up. I mean, the correspondence between him and Meghan obviously got into the hands of Omid Scobie at some point. How did that happen? And then the implication that that was the palace leaking. Not in a million years. Not in a million years is private correspondence between the king and his daughter-in-law leaked somehow via the palace. That is just not going to happen. Not in a million years. And particularly not so that Omid Scobie can get the inside goss. So yet again, we have implication because the archival footage in the docu-series is dragged up about Meghan being fed to the wolves. And it's extraordinary because it had no context. It had no context as far as the Invictus Games. It had no context as far as Prince Harry's mission. It probably had context as far as Prince Harry's life, family, which just seems like, quite frankly, a shit show. Excuse my language, but there's no other way to describe it. It does seem like that. And it seems to be encapsulated in 20 minutes. Because all that dragged up was past resentments, past allegations that have never been proved, and an incredibly, incredibly negative narrative about Prince William. Harry is asked in this archived interview from 2023 what his mother would think about the fallout between him and his brother, and he says that she would be heartbroken, and then goes quickly on to say she would be heartbroken that it was Prince William's office briefing against him and Meghan. I would like to counter that narrative. In my research, it has become very clear to me that Prince William's office was reacting to a counter narrative against William. They were reacting to leakings and briefings, not from officially from the Sussex's office, oh no, but there was leakings and briefings going on, particularly about Prince William and the Hanbury nothing burger. And that wasn't done through official channels, Harry. I suspect that was done through whispered conversations over wine at Soho House. Now, one good, clear thing that Robert Jobson did say, there was one thing. He said that rumours that Harry offered to help wasn't going to happen, that those bridges were burnt. So it could be said that even though Robert Jobson was clearly on the side of the Sussexes in this brief 20-minute doco, he did make that very, very clear. I made a note here. The docu-series is dragged over old interviews air. Its explicit purpose to taint William. So that's just a note I made on viewing the documentary. So moving on, Harry alleges that the press, because they brought up about him winning against the Mirror Group. Sure was an expensive win, wasn't it, Harry? And they said Harry goes on to Harry saying that the press will destroy any possible return to the UK. They will make it unsurvivable. Then an extraordinary thing happens. Harry dangles a possibility in the future of continuing their work with the Commonwealth. Continuing their work with the Commonwealth. I made some notes. What work, Harry? Destroying it, undermining it, being uninformed of what it is, what it stands for, its purpose. So I wrote here that he should do some swatting up and then make another doco correcting the record, because that just might be a start. Then we see footage of him doing the skeleton thing, whizzing down the slope. And I wrote here he seems so dull, so put upon, no spark at all, and quite fearful, scared to say anything out of place. It was quite moving when he spoke to a Ukrainian competitor and heard that he was there to represent all the injured Ukrainian soldiers currently doing it hard in Ukraine. But then he finishes up by saying this, and I actually think these were really wise words, and I quote, that the Invictus Games are not about the individual. The whole family is affected, and if they heal themselves, then their whole family can be healed. I suggest, Harry, you take heed of your own words. That might be a starting point to repair the mess that is your life, because they actually were quite wise words. Oh, there's a lot behind this. There's a lot more to tell. There's a lot more story behind the story. And the more I discover, I'll share with you. Let me know what you think down below. I want to hear your thoughts. I really, really do, because it often prompts me to go off looking down different rabbit holes and gives me ideas. So I do value your input. And I'll be back tomorrow night with a light-hearted gossip before bed. Can't wait. See you then. Bye.